Yesterday we learned this is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1992, shortly before he had a stroke, which rendered him half paralyzed and unable to speak. And this is one of the speeches called Dvar Malchut. They arranged them all together called Dvar Malchut, royal words of royalty. Okay, so the Rebbe is explaining to us, like all the writings of the teachings of Chabad, to look at the world in a totally different way. And the Rebbe especially stressed that we have to have two contradicting, emotions, if you want to call it, about the world. Okay, first of all, how is the world supposed to be? How is it supposed to be? The world as it is now is like in a coma. It's asleep, deep asleep. Deeply asleep. And this is a pretty good metaphor. And the job of the Jewish people is to wake the world up. There's tremendous potential found in every human being for good. Tremendous potential. For wisdom, for happiness, for joy, for harmony, for improvement, for health. Sometimes just a good morning from somebody, a genuine good morning, can change a person's whole life, and that by means of that, it'll change his whole family. Instead of going home and yelling at his wife, he says a good word and she says a good word. You can never tell. It's like a butterfly effect for good. And when that good comes out, then people don't waste their energy on anxiety and worries and guilt and what do you call fear and hatred and all these bizarre confusion. All there is frustrations, all these things in the world. People don't waste their time on all of these negative forces that are playing inside of us and outside of us. It's that which is the mainstay of the media and of the press and everything, to make people worried and make people to be hated, and the hatred takes sides. And this, the fact is that every human being is different. Every human being has something to teach everyone else. Every human being has something to learn from everyone else. Everyone is blessed and everyone is positive and it's okay. But we have to find this. How do we find this? That's the idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is supposed to come to reveal the good in every human being, and that's the idea of Chassidut. Chabad is to teach us to think more about God and less about ourselves. And the more that we think about God, the more properly and positively we can think about ourselves. Because who's really thinking about us? God. God is creating us. He's creating our teeth and our nose and our eyes. He's creating all the nose and teeth and eyes of all the animals and all the aardvarks and all the bugs and all the amoebas and the plants and everything, billions and billions of nervous systems and respiratory systems. God's creating the whole business all the time. So God's pretty good. So if we can, he's a good friend. So you have connections in high places. So if we connect ourselves, that's this thing of the Brit we talked about. If we connect ourselves, so how do we connect ourselves? By thinking, who's going to do this? The Moshiach. And these are the teachings of the Moshiach. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's the Moshiach. And we did all the Rebbes of Chabad were the Moshiach. And these are the teachings of Moshiach to reorient us to start looking positively at the world and to be able to ignore the negative things and even more transform them, or at least let God transform them. Okay, so the Rebbe says that we can see in this week's Torah portion the whole entire, gamut of creation, beginning, middle, and end. In this week's Torah portion is contained the whole business. First of all, we can see it in the Torah in general. The Torah starts off with the creation, then it has with God Bereshit, and then it has the world, and finally it'll end with Mashiach. The Rebbe says you can look at it in another way also. Before the world was the Torah, that's Aleph, Anochi. The first word of the 10 Commandments, Anochi. Then that's Aleph. Then there's Base. Base is Bereshit. Bereshit is the world. The Torah was the reason for God creating the world and the blueprints of the world. And then that's Aleph. Then Beit is the world. And Gimel is the Geula, is the future redemption. So that's Aleph, Beit, and Gimel. Okay, here we go. We can say since that everything in the world that exists. Did I record this? 1 minute. Yes, I did. Okay. That everything that is in the world comes from the Torah. Everything in the world comes by means of the Torah. And the Torah is the blueprints of the world. It says that God looked into the Torah and he creates the world. Therefore, Nichlaka Torah, the Torah itself, can be divided into these three. Number one, the beginning of the Torah is Bereshit. Right? That's the Bereshit. That's the first word in the Torah. That's how the Torah begins. Aleph. Second is, wow, look at this changing color. All right, that's Bereshit. This includes not just the beginning of the creation, but first of all, the Aleph, the first letter of the Torah that's before the world. Okay, suddenly it decided to act up. Okay, ignore the picture. That's Shekayin Bereshit means Bishvil Torah. It says, why was God created the word Bereshit? It says the Torah could have just started Reshit, the beginning. Why Bereshit? There's two beginnings. God created the world for the sake of two things that were before the world, for the sake of the Torah, that's called Reshit, and also for the sake of, Beit Reshit, for the Torah, which is called Reshit, like we said before, and the other one is the Jewish people. But here the main thing is the Torah. Everything comes from the Torah, like it's explained also in the Beit itself. The Beit announces that it comes as the number two. Beit is number two. What's the Aleph? What's the first? The first is, right, the beginning of the Torah. The Torah begins and announces there was something before it. What was the Torah before the creation of the world? What? The Anochi of the Torah, the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments come before the 10 utterances that God created the world with. That's step number one. Step number two, Breshit Bor Elokim et Hashemayim et Haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. By the way, there's a book in Judaism which is called Tikkun Zohar. Tikkun Zohar. I have the book over here somewhere. Here it goes. Tikkun Zohar. It's a book also by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and it is 70 different explanations. 70 explanations on Kabbalistic explanations on the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, and the first word of the Torah. So one of them is Bereshit, that the world was created for the sake of the Torah. Number two, Bereshit Bor Elokim et Hashemayim et Haaretz. Namely, so first of all, we have the Torah. That was before. Then Bereshit also implies that there's a world. There's a world. And in the world, there's also three aspects, namely the beginning of the world, and the purpose of the world, the Moshiach. And afterwards is drawn down all the different, that's the first section of the Torah. After that is all the other 42 sections of the Torah. There's 43 altogether. Then it talks about what happened in the world and how the world is trying to fill the intention of why God created the world. Right? There was Adam, and Adam got evicted from Gan Eden, and then afterwards there was Noah. Right? Noah was like 1,600 years after Adam, and then afterwards there came Abraham, and then afterwards Yitzchak, Yaakov. Then the Jews went into Egypt, and then they got out of Egypt, and they worshipped the golden calf. They received the Torah, etc. So we have first of all the Torah. That's before the Bereshit. Then we have the world, and then we have the completion of the Torah. Right? The Torah itself starts off with the beginning, and it hints at pre-beginning, before the beginning, the Torah. Then we have the world. Then we have the finishing. What's the finishing of the Torah? The end of the Torah is Hashem Marla Moshe, that God showed everything to Moses Ad Yom Acharon, until the last day. Ad L'Siyum Mamash, to the completion of all the miracles and all of the great signs that God made and that Moses made in front of all the Jewish people. What does that mean? The completion of the Torah, that's the complete redemption of the world by means of the Moshiach. The idea of Moshiach is, like I said before, to activate everything. Everyone will see how really, truly precious this world is in God's eyes. Moshe, that's the idea of Moses. You have to have a Moses in order to make everybody reveal this. Moses is the first redeemer, and he'll be the last redeemer. Then there'll be total revelation of God, the miracles and the signs in front of everybody. That's like this comatose person that I said, waking up, right? Uncle Joe had a terrible automobile accident 40 years ago. He's been in a coma 40 years, right? 40 years. Once in a while, he sort of opens up his eyes, so there's hope, right? And he says a couple of words, maybe he writes something down and goes back into his coma. And all of a sudden, one day, he just wakes up and he says, man, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten anything for 40 years. It's Uncle Joe. I won't believe it. Well, that's every single human being is that way. We all are in a comatose state. We're asleep. We don't see God. We don't see reality. 99% of our lives is just our imagination and how we understand things. Our how do you say, our anxiety is about what's going to be, like it says, like the days of going out of Egypt, God will show us big miracles. What's the biggest miracle? That God will show us how he's creating the world and how important we are. That's the biggest miracle of all. This is also hinted at in Pirkei Avot, what's called the Ethics of the Fathers. In the beginning of Pirkei Avot, we read Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, between Passover and Shavuot, right? Between Passover and Shavuot, we read Pirkei Avot. Every week, a different chapter. And there's some people, some groups, Chabad is one of them, that we do it until Rosh Hashanah. Right? There are 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot, and every week we finish a different chapter. Then it brings us into the 7th week. There's 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot. Okay, so we read this Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers. It's written in English, very interesting. I advise everyone also to get a copy written in English and look it over. There's some excellent explanations that are given. Okay, first of all, Pirkei Avot, how does it start off? How does the ethics of the fathers, the teachings of the fathers, Pirkei, the chapters of the fathers? The fathers are the great rabbis, especially those that are, like we said, that are called the Pharisees, the Perushim, holy people that had the power to raise the dead. Their sayings, their wisdom is eternal wisdom. And so we have, what does it say in the beginning of Pirkei Avot? How does it start off? The chapters of the fathers. Moses received the Torah from Sinai. This is the whole idea of the Torah. Like the rabbis say, everything which a pupil, a genius pupil would reveal in the Torah, everything was given to Moses. The whole thing was encapsulated, all the ideas, all the laws, all the novelty, all the laws about what's the laws about electricity and things that didn't even exist in the time of Moses. These laws were all given to Moses on Mount Sinai, but they were given in an encapsulated form, seed form. Okay, then that's Aleph. God gave the Torah to Moses on Sinai. Then afterwards, Moses gave the Torah over to Yeshua, and Yeshua to the Zikanim, and the Zikanim to the Nevi'im, to the Anshe Knesset, the people of the Great Assembly. And they said, Hamidu Talmidim Harbe. You should stand up a lot of pupils. What does it mean? Spread out the Torah. A Seder, the Masurah, the Torah, the whole idea of the giving of the Torah from generation to generation. Ofen Bo Torah, the way that the Torah was revealed from one generation to the other. 1 second, there's a little bit of background noise over here. Let's see if I can alleviate this background noise. How did it get out of here? All right. I don't know. I guess we're stuck with this. Here we go. Okay. There it is. There it is. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, good. There's somebody. Let me just mute somebody over here. There we go. Oh, okay. We'll have questions and answers after the class. Okay, I'm sorry. There was background noise. I just cut somebody off. So the Rebbe is trying to stress this idea of beginning, middle, and end. How important each and every one of them are. Beginning is the Torah. Middle is the world. End is the Moshiach. Also the same thing we see in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. Beginning is God gave the Torah to Moses. Middle, Moses gave the Torah over from generation to generation to God-fearing people that they would interpret the Torah properly. And finally, Siyum Kol Pirkei Avot, the end of the chapters of the fathers, God will rule forever and ever. Shekol Kol Hemshech HaZaman, this includes all of time and all of the times and every good thing that we've done, Ha'geula mitit v'shlema, then will be revealed in the true redemption. We'll see how eternal the good deeds that we did and that all the generations did, how they are. That's when Hashem Yimloch L'olam V'oed, that God will rule forever and ever. Then the kingship will be for His. The complete revelation of the received, that's the purpose of the receiving of the Torah and giving it over for all the generations. The good that was done will be revealed. I mean, just think about it. A lot of times, this is an idea that sort of, really is looming in my mind all the time. The millions and millions of Jews that died because they were Jews and they suffered and they died alone. They were killed by the Romans, by the church, by the Nazis, by the communists, and by the Spanish, by the Spaniards, and the enemies are without, the list is like this, right? By the Greeks, by the Romans, by the this, right in the time of Hanukkah. All these Jews that they gave their lives in private. Nobody knows about it. They're not written in any books. Nobody knows where they're buried. They just all of a sudden there was Mesirat Nefesh. We're talking about Mesirat Nefesh, self-sacrifice. We learned about that before. Self-sacrifice and all these good deeds, and nobody knows anything about them. Well, the fact is that God does know about it, and that the whole idea of the future redemption is that everybody's going to know about it. All the good deeds that people did, I don't know how this is going to be, but all the good that was done in the world will realize that it never died. That was what was real. And all these people that were famous and they got their names in the papers and they had money and they were all smiling and they were this and that, that's just nothing. It's absolutely meaningless, totally meaningless nothing, unless they did it, with the intention that they were doing what God wanted to, or maybe that was really what God wanted them to do, How God's going to figure out this reward and punishment business, I don't know. But one thing for sure, Jews that suffered and died for the sake of Judaism, the reward is immeasurable, and it'll be revealed. That's the idea of the future redemption. All of the good that's concealed now will be redeemed. It'll be revealed. We can say, Shazeo, this is one of the reasons. Listen, I think not only the Jews, also non-Jews also. How God is going to figure this thing out, I don't know. But God does not remain a debtor. If people do good things for the sake of good, then it's eternal. How? Like I say, I don't know how it's going to measure it out. We'll talk about it maybe sometime, but not too much because I don't really understand it. But for sure, God does not remain a debtor, and those people who did according to what the Torah says with self-sacrifice, that their good deeds are eternal. And in fact, that's the only thing that really is eternal. Everything else will just be, they say, gone with the wind. Or we can say, this is one of the reasons why the Torah was attached to number 3. Like the rabbis say that the Torah was given on the 3rd month, right? It's a 3-part Torah and Nevi'im and Ketuvim. The Torah and the prophets and the writings. The writings are like Psalms and what is it called? The Song of Songs and Proverbs. It's a triple Torah by means of a what was it? Triple Torah, Torah Nevi'im Ketuvim, La'am Talitai, to a triple nation. There's Kohanim, Levi'im, and Yisraelim. Al Yudei Talitai, by means of number 3, Moses was the third to be born, right? He had Aaron and Miriam and Moses. Biyom Talitai, on the third day, on the third month. I guess it was, I don't know, what was the Yom Talitai? Well, anyway, on the third month, I guess it was the 3 days. God told Moses to prepare the Jewish people 3 days before the giving of the Torah. And it was on the third month of Sivan. This is Rabbi Nehorai Gaon. He explains also more things, number 3, that are attached to giving of the Torah. What's the big thing about number 3? And that by means of giving the Torah is completed the purpose of the whole entire creation, the whole chain of creation, all the spiritual worlds and everything. And that is divided into 3. Everything is divided into 3, beginning, middle, and end. Therefore, the Torah is also divided into 3, Aleph, Beit, and Gimel, beginning, middle, and end. Aleph is Breshi, is Anochi, God. Beit is Bereshit, the world, and Gimel is the Geula, the future redemption, when everything will be revealed. We can say that these 3 things are found and revealed also in our Torah portion. How are they revealed in our Torah portion? Let's try it. Here we go. In our Torah portion, that's what the Rebbe wanted to say about our Torah portion. Okay, next week I'll try to bring a different camera. Should I try my camera now? I got a new camera over here. Huh? Should I tell you? We don't have much time, but anyway, that's not so bad. Come on, we can. We'll deal with this tomorrow. I'll try the new camera. This is a new camera. Just got a new camera, compact. eBay, or what is it? Amazon. The best China has to offer. Here, look at this. We'll see if it works tomorrow. Okay. Meanwhile, this thing my face changes and everything. It's a little bit interesting, huh? Breaks the boredom. People are watching. Keep your eyes on the text. In any case, the Luchot Rishon. Here we have the 3 things in this week's Torah portion. What are in this week's Torah portion? Kitisa. That's how we began this whole lecture. This week's Torah portion contains opposites from the opposites. First of all, we have the first tablets. The Jewish people, they all saw God. They all heard God. They were on Mount Sinai. It says their souls jumped out of their bodies. The revelation was so holy. It was like being in the Holy of Holies, the highest. God took them out of Egypt, showed them all sorts of miracles. They knew they were the chosen people. That was the first tablets. On the first tablets, that on them was carved out the 10 commandments, that it was given at the giving of the Torah. That's the Aleph. That's the beginning of everything. That includes the whole entire creation of the world. That it was created for the sake of the Torah and for the sake of the Jewish people. Then we have number 2. What's number 2? The descent of the Jewish people. The sin of the golden calf that brought to the breaking of the first temple, the first tablets. And this is hinted at the letter Beit. Aleph is the Torah, Aleph, and Beit. Why? Because this is a descent to the world, Breshit. All of a sudden, the world became dominant. That's the Beit, Breshit Bor Elokim. Because of the world, there's a place to do sins and breaking of the tablets. Like it's known that the sin of the golden calf that is attached to the sin of Adam eating from the tree, this came from as a result of the Tzimtzum Rishon. The Tzimtzum Rishon and the breaking of the vessels. These are Kabbalistic terms which are used very commonly in Hasidut Chabad. And Tzimtzum means that God concealed his light. God concealed his infiniteness. He concealed it. And as a result of that, another step of this concealment was what's called the breaking of the vessels. God broke these vessels in one of the worlds, whatever, that gave a place that there could be, the physical world would be dominant. 2 processes by means of which God made the physical world and the dominance of the physical world over the spiritual, so we would have free choice. And afterwards, it says that it went down further. It says that the moon got less. Originally, the moon and the sun were equal. God made the moon less. And after many, many contractions and veils and etc., so there is sin in this world. And the intention is this, by means of our serving God below, until we are in a situation of a descent, we will do the creation with the intention. Why God made all this concealment and everything? For the sake of the Torah, like we said before. Okay, I tried to change the port. I guess that didn't work with the picture. Okay, let's go. So that's Aleph and Beit. Aleph is the Torah. Beit is the sin of the golden calf. That's as a result of the world. Gimel are the last tablets. That is the letter, that's the thing of Gimel. And this is an elevation which is incredibly greater, like we learned before in Torah Or. The elevation which comes after the sin. This is even higher than before. Okay, all right, I get the point. I'm going to change this picture. We're going to try the new camera. I'm going to try the new camera. Ready? There'll be a temporary block out here. I'm going to try the new camera. Let's see if I can find this thing here. Here we go. Oh. All right, here we go. Didn't take long. Changing the tire. Here we go. Excuse me. What do you say? Huh?
Good.
Picture. All right, let's go. Let's continue. All right, we'll have to. Right. So we have number one, we have the first tablets. Then we have the sin of the golden calf. That's Beit. That's second stage. See, it's the computer. See, it's not the thing. It's a brand new thing. Okay. Good. So that he just learned merit on the other cameras. The other cameras, okay. We get a new computer. Then there's the last tablets. The last tablets, that's the letter Gimel. That's an elevation which is incredibly greater than before. So what do we say? We have perfect, then we have destruction, and then we have better than perfect. Correcting the destruction makes it even better than perfect. The rabbis explain that's what it says, that even more. In the end of the Torah, it says the great miracles, remember the great miracles that Moses did before the eyes of all the Jews, that this refers to the breaking of the tablets, that Moses decided on his own that he was going to break the tablets. Why did he do it? He says he did it to save the Jewish people. Basically, God said, the Jewish people worship the golden calf. I'm going to kill them all. I'm going to wipe them all out. And Moses said, what did they do wrong? He said, they worship the golden calf. It says you're not supposed to do that. Moses said, where does it say they're not supposed to do that? It says in the Torah. It says, in the Torah, Moses broke the Torah, broke the tablets. Doesn't say it anymore. That he said he broke the tablets in order to save the Jewish people, and God agreed with him. He said, Asher shibarta, yesha koach asher shibarta. It's a good thing that you broke them. And says the Rebbe, well, how could this be a good thing? That they broke the tablets, the holy tablets, for the worst sinners in the world. And God agreed with it. How? It says, because we can say the explanation is by this. By means of the sin of the golden calf, there was added to the Jewish people a necessity to elevate themselves and defy their own nature and the nature of the world. And they became what was called Bali Tshuva. They returned back to God. Like we say, they returned from back to back. The furthest they could be away, they returned themselves to be face to face. This is even higher than the level of the tzaddikim. This is even higher than the level of the first tablets. Like it says, the place where Bali Tshuva, people that return to God, stand, is higher than people that were always facing God. That's a tzaddik. It says not only that it's higher, it says that the tzaddikim, people that were always facing God, they're not even able to be in the place where people return. Also, it is also regarding to the breaking of the tablets, which come from the sin of the golden calf. That the inner reason why Moses broke the tablets is because by means of this, it would give new power to the Torah. It says the second tablets had an advantage over the first tablets. Like the rabbis say that God said to Moshe Rabbeinu, God said, Al Yadesha Titzteir, because Moses himself was very, very pained that he had to break the tablets. And God said, Al Titzteir. God said, do not be pained, heartbroken that you broke the tablets. Shalo ayu esera, because the first tablets only had 10 commandments on it. And the second commandments, I'm going to give you all the laws with the Midrash, the Agada, the Talmud, etc. Kiflaim litoshia, doubled power. Like the words of the Talmud. If it wasn't for the fact that the Jewish people sinned, then God would not have given them the 5 books of the Torah, the book of Yoshua. If it wasn't for the fact that the Jews sinned, is all we would have was the 5 books of the Torah, the book of Joshua, who took the Jews into Egypt. It took the Jews into Israel, Joshua alone. That would have been it. The 5 books of the Torah, Joshua. Kibarov Chachma, Rov Kas. It says because God made God angry, there was increased wisdom. Lefi she ba'atu v'chatu, because the Jewish people spurned God, and they sinned, there was added to the Jewish people more wisdom. And the Jewish people had to put more energy now into the Torah. That's the whole idea of the last tablets. They were made by Moses. God said, Pasal Lacha. Not like the first tablets that were made by God. Why? We're going to learn tomorrow. Now is, oh, wow, look at this. It's doing all the things that the other one did. All right. So we're going to stop here. Tomorrow, Friday, God willing, we'll continue. There will be a class tomorrow morning. So what are we learning from this? We're learning from this that this week's Torah portion, which is Parshas Kitisa, is teaching us a lesson that even if Jews, who are God's chosen people, God expects a lot from them, and they do the worst possible sin you could possibly imagine. No imaginable sin could be worse than that. God personally told them not to worship idols, and they did it. Nevertheless, the way to rectify this, the way to fix it up, the worst sins possible, is just by changing your attitude. Just by turning back to the creator of the universe alone. And the sin of idolatry, that's of all the sins, that's the worst of all sins. Denying God or trying to add something to God or whatever. And nevertheless, all you have to do is change your attitude. But changing your attitude, as we all know, is not such a simple thing. It requires a lot of genuineness. You can't just say, okay, God, I changed my mind. I accept you, right? It's a little bit more, how do you say, you have to be a little more genuine than that. At least you have to be as genuine in your return to God as you were genuine and involved in getting pleasure from not doing what God wants. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. There will, God willing, be classes at 3:00, I hope today. So anybody who wants to can listen in. We'll do a speech of the Rebbe also. Thank you very much for being with us. Oh, Yom Yom. We have the Yom Yom. 1 second.